let's go. I was thinking about a thing with regards to variability in relationships and kind of the different functions maybe behind them. More so with regards to two specific categories. The notion of like a balancing relationship versus a compounding relationship. So you could think of like compounding relationships as firefighters, right? They all fight fires, so they get together in a group, and that community forms the function of compounding that desire to fight fires and their ability, etc., etc. It makes them better at fighting fires. So it compounds a part of who those people are. Athletes, kind of the same thing. They go to a track meet where all the other athletes get, they hype each other up, and it works really good in that regards, providing the underlying characteristic, meaning the reason they're getting together is a good thing. That community will function, those relationships will function as a magnification lens for those characteristics. On the other hand, you have something more like familial or religious congregations or marital stuff like that, where I tend to think the function has more to do with the notion of having people who not necessarily compound your characteristics, but people who keep you on an even keel. They help balance you out. They care about you, but they don't necessarily agree with you about everything. And needless to say, it's probably good to have a combination of both. But anyways, let's get into this. All right. I think we're just going to take a look at the rest of these David Mitchell videos. We might go to the Dr. K video, and then we have a thing about the Land of the Long Knives, but I think we're just gonna maybe stick with these. I'd wanted to knock the rest of these out, so huzzah!
Do you think it's too late?
Going forward, resist change. Do you see the problem or a challenge?
To stop the expression going forward becoming mainstream? I'm afraid it might be. It's begun to make that transition from being one of those phrases only hateful management-speaking idiots would dream of using, which is fine because it provides another useful way by which hateful idiots can identify themselves to the rest of us, to being just another way of saying from now on. But we don't
Time is a construct.
need another way of saying from now on. We've got one and it was here first and it's better. And if people I like are going to start saying going forward, then I can no longer just write it off as a thing awful people
It does seem a little bit ostentatious as a phrase.
say. I suppose this state of affairs does at least retrospectively justify having fought the phrase in the first place, because the routine adoption of it by non-twats was just the development I feared. But there's only a certain amount of pleasure you can get from saying I told you so. Granted, that certain amount is loads, but still, it's finite. I think what I hate about going forward is that it implies advancement, when it's actually just describing the passing of time. From now on is a colourless description.
Yeah, advancement rather than just change. It's just different than what it was before. Not necessarily better, just different.
At what point and for what foreseeable duration the office canteen will be charging 5 pence for paper towels. Going...
Oh, yeah, nice. I think that's what that one's about. Tissue only 5p or
forward
something.
makes it sound like progress. Brothers, in our ceaseless surge onwards and upwards towards the sunlit uplands of human perfection, another milestone has been passed. Free paper towels, those shameful reminders of humanity's imperfect, unevolved past, are no more. Going forward, paper towels will cost 5 pence. No.
See, I don't know if it would just have adopted... I guess I have heard people who I wouldn't have considered like a middle management type person use that. So I don't know if it had a different meaning or if it's the same meaning, just other people have adopted it, because people use like emotional labor now and they use like all sorts of stupid phraseology. So I don't know if they're just like they've adopted that meaning or if they've changed the meaning and then adopted it. I don't know. Don't know.
Not everything has to sound like a master plan. Change is not always for the better, the future is not always bright, forward is not always where we're going. We may well be going backwards to our doom, or most likely staying perfectly still while...
Well, technically speaking, I just feel like the reason why the future is because that's the place we're going. The reason why the past is past is because that's where we're trying to get away from. And the present is kind of the apex, not the apex, the nexus of it all. The center of human inertia.
And now, if you'll excuse me, I'm going to have a little cry. It's interesting that there are areas in which we're prepared to concede that personal taste
What these amorphous things are supposed to be.
is subjective, and areas in which we're absolutely not. I like
There's gnomes inside of it.
bacon, for instance. I think it's delicious. But if we were eating out together...
Yeah, I don't know. I think people tend to associate subjectivity with like a thing not being real, which it just isn't. It just means not universally applicable. At least in my mind. It doesn't mean that it's like not a real thing. Obviously it is a real thing. It's just not something that you could apply to everything. It's somewhat unique to the individual or whatever the situation is that you're talking about.
and you were to mention you hate bacon, I wouldn't try to convince you were wrong. I wouldn't
Well, I guess I'm preempting some, but I think his argument is that why can't we... No, I think he asked that. Why can we accept certain things as being subjective, and why can we not accept other things? Well, that's kind of the issue. Like, gravity is pretty universal as a force of nature. A person liking or disliking bacon is not nearly so universal. Right? Right. A person liking a certain color, very subjective. Doesn't matter. A person thinking they can, have sex with underage people, that's not so subjective. That's a pretty universal moral code. So I think that there are a lot of things that we think of as universally applicable, and we don't believe that there are exceptions to be made there for subjectivity. Because I think it has to do with the universality or perceived universality of the principle involved. That's my notion.
Insist you order bacon or try to marshal arguments that would convince you of its tastiness. Nor, if you later ordered rhubarb for pudding, would I make any attempt to save you from the hideous
Rhubarb sucks. Only ever had it once, I remember, and it was not good.
mistake you are about to make, even though I happen to know by personal experiment that rhubarb is revolting. No, I would watch you make your rhubarby bed and proceed to lie in it without lifting a finger to help you. But if, as you were masticating the last hideous, stringy, acidic mouthful, you
That's what I remember. It's sour and weird. Like the texture is part of it, too.
to mention that you don't particularly enjoy the books of Evelyn Waugh, it would be a different story. I would
I don't know who Evelyn Waugh is. Interesting.
be aghast at your wrongness, and might well attempt to spring to your aid by trying to forcibly divest you of your wrong opinion. I'd try to convince you you'd read the wrong book of his, or at the wrong age, or with the wrong attitude, or, though I hope I would manage not to say this out loud, with the wrong amount of not being a sense of humorless dickhead. Why should this be? Why can't I accept someone else's taste in books, films, or even politics the same way I can accept their taste in food?
Well, I think an equal part of this has to do with the fact that we perceive some things as being kind of almost integral to our personality a little bit. And so when a person threatens that thing that's integral to your personality, or the foundation of who you are as a person, like some sort of conscientious belief as opposed to just some sort of, artistic or culinary taste, it's very different in the way you perceive that. It's more threatening to who you are as an individual, I guess.
As a fact about who they are, like their height or hair colour. What's the difference between Evelyn Waugh and a bowl of rhubarb? There's a riddle you don't often see.
Well, technically nothing to a chef. A chef might find that very important and might be willing to argue for hours on end about what food is good and in what setting. There are people who are very, very persnickety. Like in the same way you would probably feel about Evelyn Waugh, they would feel that same way about food, actually. because it's something that's really important to them.
On a lolly stick. And I suppose the answer, not the lolly stick answer, I don't have one, if you have, do by all means put it in the comments, is that actually, if I really think about it, I don't truly accept other people's taste in food as legitimate either. I pretend to, because that's the convention, but actually when someone claims that rhubarb is edible or that bacon is not, the fundamental fascism of the human soul is laid bare because I don't believe them for a second. I don't understand why they're lying or what they hope to get out of it.
Probably lying to themselves because they want to be healthy or some crap.
But I'm used to people telling such lies, and I'm aware it's bad manners to call them out on it. But no, I don't deep down actually admit that it is possible to enjoy eating rhubarb or not to enjoy eating bacon. I mean, come on, bacon. This is a food so delicious, it's been specifically banned by 2 major religions. What greater seal of approval could it have? It's right up there with fornication.
Technically, I'm thinking Islam might have gotten the ban of pork from Judaism. I'm not for sure. Like, Muhammad was very, very involved, like, in that whole scenario. At least in an ideal world, they were supposed to be attached to the hip, but it got very dicey when the Jews didn't really support his claim to be the prophesied one. Mecca kind of became his stomping ground a little bit after he started getting followers. Very, very interesting sort of history going on there.
Meet nature's original multivitamin. Grass-fed beef liver. Pure, no filler.
You have to admire the marketing department at Marmite. Or as they would have it, you either have to admire them or despise them. They've created an advertising campaign so powerful it has almost attained the status of a proverb. Not only that, but people, usually awful people admittedly, but still technically people, are actually
I don't know what Marmite is exactly. From the description, maybe I think I looked it up at some point, but then promptly forgot what it was. But I think it's some sort of spreadable something on like toast or something like that.
prepared to compare themselves approvingly to their product. I'm like Marmite, me, they say. You either love me or you hate me. That's quite an achievement for a toast spread, surely. No one says, I'm like jam. Pretty much everyone likes me, but too much of me makes...
Weirdly, I don't think I actually like jam. And it might have to do with the texture. I don't necessarily mind the flavor so much as just like there's little bits of the berries inside of it or something. Never liked blackberries either, or grapes. Yeah, a bit persnickety sometimes.
You feel sick? Or, I'm like marmalade. Everyone likes me, but not as much as they did in the 50s. Though heaven knows I can think of people to whom both of the above apply. And the thing that's really impressive about the success of the love-hate Marmite dichotomy is that I'm not even sure it's true. Do people either love Marmite or hate it? I mean, some people definitely hate it, no doubt about that. But the people who don't hate it, people like me, don't they generally sort of not mind it? At the most, rather like it? Who are these people who love Marmite? Are they so busy sitting at home gorging themselves on twiglets that we never see or hear from them? I don't think so. I have a feeling that by conceding the fact that some people dislike it, Marmite have rather brilliantly elevated the people who don't mind it into enthusiasts. Because we have this nagging...
Clever little advertising agents.
feeling that, as with physics, every action should have an equal...
I should say they moonlight as advertising agents. Their real job is, more infernal.
an opposite reaction. If Marmite
Sorry, that's a bit extreme.
is hated, then surely it must also be loved.
There's kind of like a whole genre of industries that we almost see as being like kind of parasitic to the nth degree. I was thinking the other week, IRS is obviously probably one of them. I'm not sure what we were talking about though.
And by a roughly equal number of people.
There was another one. No.
Well, no. And I fear that the people who find they have the need to compare themselves to the famously polarizing yeast extract are making the same mistake. People definitely hate me, they think. I'm loud and selfish and rude and pleased with myself, and I know for certain lots of people can't stand me because they tell me so. This is a bad thing, and maybe I ought to do something about it. But hold on, not so fast. Let me...
Like, I haven't heard that about Marmite, obviously. That's probably a British thing, but you do feel like there are people who just kind of... There would be a type of person who would say, you either love me or you hate me. Yeah, it does feel it could be Cope or something like that. I'd heard that about, like, Steve Jobs, though. It was more like the people he was around or something. Like, he either loved you or he hated you. There wasn't a lot of in between.
Apply the presumably analogous case of Marmite. People hate that as well. But the people who don't hate it love it. I know that for a fact, because the marketing division of Unilever have told me so, and they ought to know.
You wonder what, like, makes that type of phenomenon where things like super divisive versus just being kind of either way. Sure.
Oh, if anyone does. Therefore, the people who don't hate me, the ones who tolerate me, they must...
I feel like Trump would be kind of in that category, where there's not a lot of people who are just like, he's alright, I guess. There's a lot of people who really, really like him, and there's a lot of people who really, really hate him. I'm not for sure, like, again, what is it that causes that type of super divisive...
actually love me. Brilliant. I never need to change my antisocial ways. Of course, you know who really was a Marmite person? Hitler. I mean, some people really hated him, but some people really loved him. That's a historical fact. And I should make it clear, for the benefit of Marmite's lawyers, that I'm...
Just throw that back at the person whenever they say, people either love me or hate me.
I'm not saying Marmite is like Hitler. Strictly speaking, I'm saying it's less popular than Hitler once was.
See, I sometimes, like, I've wondered this before, though, like, if Hitler was born any other place at any other time in history, would he have been what he was? So maybe the divisiveness of a scenario is not so much in the thing itself, but more in the people who are caught up in a very divisive scenario at the time. So maybe it's less about, like, kind of the epicenter, or maybe the epicenter is more incidental than you might think with regards to that type of thing.
Some people complain that in Britain we're so standoffish and or repressed that we can't
It's true.
even talk to each other on public transport.
Also true. I don't know.
I think that's a wonderful thing.
I don't know about their public transport, but they do seem like, in general, to be a very... Well, at least the upper class of England, not like the Cockneys or the Irish or Welsh or whatever, but like the ones who have a Oxford accent, like the really posh accent, they feel like they're innately just kind of this, oh, I don't know, like, it's kind of their whole shtick.
I sit on a full bus or underground carriage of people sitting together in complete silence, and my heart swells with pride at a culture sophisticated enough to have evolved a convention that acknowledges that chatting with strangers is almost always an unrewarding chore. What a hell we would make of our lives if, on top of having to go to work every day, get stuff done and hold down a job, we also had to worry about making conversation on the way there and back. If our exhaustedness during a Monday journey in or a Thursday journey home were compounded by having to conceal it and ask chirpy questions of an elderly sales executive about her extension. If only we could expand this enlightened attitude to social occasions. Why? At parties or dinners, are you never allowed to sit with your friends? These are the people I know I like. I
might actually go over that again. No, I suppose on principle, the notion of, hey, some people just don't click, that does kind of work. But also, I see the value in trying to meet new people, or even just learn how to talk with people you don't know. It's a useful skill to have. Not to mention the type of lethargy or stagnation that goes along with just hanging out with your little clique of persons. I suppose, like, on principle, I don't like the notion of cliques, especially when there's no like real foundation for it. If it's just some sort of superfluous, oh, we're the cool kids type bullshit. I'm not overly fond of that whole notion of it.
Invested time and energy into finding people whose company I enjoy and who are able to tolerate mine.
Yeah, so do it once more. Do it one more time. See if there's someone else you can...
Why would I want to gamble on the chance that some perfect stranger also fits into the category?
Well, there's a point, too, to be had that meeting at a party doesn't necessarily mean you have something in common. Like, if you go to an event for blank, then you can talk about blank thing, right? But being into a social gathering is a pretty broad category. Most people either are or would like to be involved in social gatherings. But I think that is some of the beauty of it, too. That you, like, with regards to church, just, shilling that, you meet a lot of people that you otherwise would have very little in common with, and you learn to cooperate with people that otherwise you would have very little in common with. I think that's a good thing, generally speaking. It's a very eclectic assortment of people.
I have a sure bet sitting 3 inaudible places away from me. But dinner parties in particular seem to be designed entirely around the thought, which people who haven't met each other can we make meet each other? So people who already have
I feel like that... Yeah.
friends are set up on awkward dinner-length mini-friendship dates with potential new friends. Why do we do that? It's not as if we set up people who are already married on dates with potential new spouses, even though I bet that would be a hell of a lot more popular.
Again, in settings like that, you have some sort of commonality that links you to each other. You have something... Sorry, I'm not suggesting people do that, but even in that like hypothetical scenario, you would have some sort of commonality that would link you. It's a less broad category of individuals. It's a more bespoke type of thing that you're gathering together to talk about or do. So you get it's a selection bias of sorts. But again, I'm not opposed to the notion, like, I think I disagree with him here. I think the notion of, hey, let's force people to develop some social skills, like, oh, heaven forbid. Heaven forbid.
Obviously, sometimes, especially at weddings or similar, there are the massive bores who no one wants to sit next to, but somebody must. I realise that has to happen. Now and again, you have to throw yourself on the bomb that is Uncle Walter talking about his varicose veins. And I also admit that now and again you spend a pleasant half an hour talking to someone new and interesting. Once in a blue moon, it may even lead to a genuine new friendship. But this benefit surely doesn't
And admittedly, I do not live in England, so I don't know if I would like a party structured perhaps like they do it in England. But in principle, I can appreciate the notion behind it.
Weigh the cost of all the times it doesn't work. I'd happily forego the rare occasions when it works out in order to prevent the tragedy, and it is a tragedy, of 2 blameless, polite people who don't have much in common, forced to spend the duration of the meal pointlessly trying to ignore that
Again. Or maybe, developing social skills.
fact and boring each other senseless. All because society dictates we can neither sit with the people we like, nor just bin out on this and get books out.
Well, these days there's an equivalent to that in that most people would probably just pull out their cell phone. At least in America. I don't know if that's the case in Britain. They seem to be more stuck up over there. So it's probably some sort of social convention where you don't do that.
We are all faced with a series of great opportunities brilliantly disguised as impossible situations. So wrote Charles R. Swindoll, according to the internet.
It's a nice sentiment in any case.
This enervating sentiment...
There's kind of a notion, actually, that you only ever become as, competent as your predatory element allows you to be. Like, you only advance as far as you have to advance, which I don't think is necessarily true, but there's some truth to it, I think. I think in a lot of ways you kind of need the stick. As much as I like the idea of being able to be, self-motivated or, the notion of self-metamorphosis, I think sometimes you do need the carrot and the stick a little bit.
Is typical of modern business rhetoric. Nothing is bad, a tragedy, a pain in the arse, or a pisser. These things are just opportunities, or at the very worst, challenges. Well, not everything that isn't the way we want it to be is a challenge. Sometimes it's a problem. For instance, there's a lot of talk about the challenge old media like newspapers and TV face from the internet. But it's not a challenge, it's the thing that's killing them.
Probably even more true these days. Well, I guess I don't know. There's still newspapers around.
It's not an exciting, inspiring challenge to bring some interest into the otherwise jaded lives of newspaper editors. It isn't a thrilling opportunity to think outside the box. It's a huge threat that's killing them off and which they wish with all their hearts they didn't have to face. It's
I feel like quite often, like, something that dies easily, I guess maybe this isn't the case, but sometimes I tend to think that a thing that dies easily, if it breaks easily or if it is destroyed easily, it wasn't much to start with. In this case, that might not be the case, but it does feel like you should allow things to fade in their due time. The notion of trying to hang on to some outdated relic of the past is not, it's unbecoming, put it that way.
not a crossword puzzle.
That's kind of like the reason why I tend to think like aging is a bit of a tragedy. It's that on some level, some part of us remains unchanged and as vibrant as ever, but it's in a body that is degrading. Anyways.
It's a leopard. Climbing a mountain because you want to see if you can climb a mountain is a challenge. Climbing a mountain because while you were at work someone put a mountain between you and your house is a problem. And in old media's case, the internet has not only built that mountain, but also placed on top of it old media's mountaineering equipment, heart medicine, and wheelchair. I suppose the point is to encourage positive thinking as a motivational tool. That people are more likely to be energetic and creative about facing a challenge or embracing an opportunity than solving a problem or countering a threat. But is that really the case? Are we so pessimistic we think that as a species we're doomed to founder unless we resort to cheap rhetorical cheerleading?
I think it certainly works. Typically, like inspirational speeches, whatever it is that makes people like those, or most of the time I just don't feel it. Maybe I'm missing some emotional component.
Are we really more likely to focus on a problem if our leaders make it sound like a fun activity rather than a life-endangering menace? I'd like to think we're better than that. I'd like to, but I don't. In my heart, I suspect the challenge mongers are quite right, that the
Challenge mongers. Nice.
reframing works. It stops
Adrenaline junkies is probably the word we would use.
people getting too depressed and listless about things that are basically just awful.
I thought that would maybe be different. I'm not for sure.
Up to a point, anyway. But I imagine even they have a job at one another's funerals. We're here to celebrate the life of Darren Smiley, tireless challenge taker and opportunity grabber. And what an exciting time for him this is, as he is presented with his most exciting challenge to date. To force open his lifeless eyes, reboot his defunct system, kick apart the coffin, and join us at the wake in time for nibbles. If I know Darren at all, I'm sure he's finding the challenge incredibly exciting, and he'll be relishing the chance to demonstrate that rising from the dead is an opportunity that can only be seized by people lucky enough to have died. Rest in peace, Darren. See you in 20.
It's a little bit cynical, but hilarious also.
I'm always irritated. Well, you knew that already. But in this instance, I'm always irritated
I was aware.
when I hear people talk about the Atkins diet, or whatever it's called these days, as if it's an amazing trick, a way to get thin for free. Because you can have all the steak and eggs and cream you want, they say, just not any carbs. Wait, just not any what? Carbs? You mean bread and potatoes and pasta? Where's the just in just not those things, I always think. Those things are great. They then continue shaking their heads, but you'd be surprised how much you find yourself craving carbs.
Oh, is that the keto one they have going on these days? Is that what this... The Atkins diet? I should look it up sometime. 'Cause I feel like keto is the big one these days, and I thought that's kind of in the same vein.
After a while, Well, no, I wouldn't. I know how much I crave them at the moment, while I'm totally allowing myself loads of them. The thought of such cravings intensifies.
I don't really have toast in the mornings. I used to. I tried to mostly cut out bread or whatever. It's just kind of one of those things. It's not good for your teeth. It's not good for... I feel like it maybe helps you gain weight as well, just on principle carbs or whatever.
In circumstances of extended withdrawal, while I'm being presented with a series of foods that traditionally go deliciously with or on them, is not a surprise at all. Oh, you'd be amazed how bucket after bucket of egg mayonnaise makes you fancy a bagel, how attempting to gargle down a cup of jam and butter will make the absence of a slice of toast
Like, why would you... Okay, I think he's being hyperbolic. Never mind, I think he's being hyperbolic.
seem perverse, how a great viscous tub of bolognese sauce will seem weirdly spaghetti-less. Well, no, I wouldn't. But the dieters talk about it as if it's one of those classic genie fooling you with a loophole stories. Oh God, the genie's got me! He promised me I could eat all the meat and eggs I wanted and still get thin. But it turns out I can't have any bread.
See, I feel like this is more subjective than you might think. Because I don't feel entirely like maybe I would, and I sometimes eat other like flour-based products, but quite often I don't eat a lot of bread, I suppose. Maybe that's hypocritical. Maybe I eat more than I should, but like the times I have been kind of without it for a long time, I don't know if I've really noticed that much, but...
Bread. And of course meat and eggs are useless without bread and potatoes. Who would have thought it? I would have thought it. Any fool...
Okay, potatoes, I don't know. Even potatoes, I don't know if I would notice potatoes that much. I like making french fries now and then, but man.
Fool would have thought it. I would have thought. I have never eaten a bacon sandwich thinking for a moment that it was all about the Harrison Ford Indiana Jones bacon. It needs the Steven Spielberg bread and butter behind the scenes, making it brilliant. Bacon on its own is just like watching a load of Harrison Ford.
Also, I just find biting down on sandwiches annoying because it just feels like you're always going to get like stuff stuck in your teeth or whatever. So it's like...
Ford interviews. In fact, sometimes I think there's no better food than bread and butter, especially when you remember that the mere application of heat can turn mild-mannered bread and butter into super toast, which is somehow delicious in a whole different way. Certainly, I would defy anyone to eat anything else as much as we eat bread and butter and still find it as delicious as we find bread and butter. Imagine if you had to eat truffles once or twice a day, or caviar. You'd go very quickly from delight to indifference.
It is strange how the rarity of a thing makes it kind of just desirable in our minds. I don't know.
From there, it will be a short trip to boredom and nausea. But bread and butter, and indeed potatoes, just keep soldiering on, as deliciously welcome today as they were yesterday and will be tomorrow.
It is strange, like, there's a whole kind of genre of food that isn't, like, really over-the-top delicious. It's just kind of solid, I feel like. There's a lot of it. Like, chicken is something that, like, you have all the time, but somehow it's still good. Still good.
In general, the relative deliciousness of foods, once the truly disgusting and pointless things like licorice and celery have been discounted, is
You don't like licorice? What the Harry? Troglodyte!
defined by economics. At one end of the scale are things which are common and unloved, like rice or apples. At the other, the expensive treats, the things that are basically prized.
He doesn't like rice or apples. What? Okay.
Discounted is defined by economics. At one end of the scale are things which are common and unloved, like rice or apples. At
Okay. So he's just saying they're kind of...
the other, the expensive treats, the things that are basically prized simply because they're rare and thus pricey. These things are getting an easy ride. If you reverse the availability of chicken and lobster, people would quite like lobster, but go mad for chicken. Oysters used to be abundant, and so a working class
Interesting.
staple for people who couldn't afford proper food, so were reduced to slurping cold snot from a rock. Then
I don't think I would like oysters, especially raw. I don't know what they like. Is there any cooked version of oysters?
they got rare, and hey presto, they're prized as a delicacy. Conversely, scampi used to be posh, but it isn't that expensive to produce, so quickly slid down the deliciousness scale to pub grub. But then,
That's scampi.
On a scale of deliciousness all of their own, independent of economics, there are the things that we always love, whatever they're...
See, I would have put chicken in that category, but apparently this jackass is
their availability.
too English.
Salt used to be so precious soldiers were paid in it. Now it's so cheap you can buy a sack of it for £1. It makes no difference. We loved it then and we love it now. Pistachio nuts are another one. Pasta. But the
I don't know how I feel about pistachio nuts. I'm not like overly fond of them, but I can see the appeal. They're kind of nice.
king of them all is bread, and his loyal queen butter.
Is it true that pistachio shells are actually poisonous or some crap? I thought there was one type of nut with it. I don't know if it's pistachios. I think it might be something from... I'm not for sure, though.
Long may they rule over us, and confusion to the usurper Atkins. Rape and pillage, rape and pillage. No, that's not a command. Sit down.
What a way to start a video.
It's just that I don't quite understand.
Again, this is made like 8 years ago or something, so, you know. I don't know if it was more edgy back then or not.
And why it is that pillage should take the curse off rape. Because it does, doesn't it? The Vikings raped and pillaged their way through the north sounds a lot merrier than a gang of Norwegian sailors are suspected of a series of rapes in the Sunderland area. Add pillage to
Sorry, it's not funny. It's not funny, but man.
Rape, and suddenly it has a certain air of knockabout fun. But pillage is bad enough by itself. It's theft, looting, and arson. Being pillaged would be an awful thing to happen to anyone. What it definitely isn't is a spoonful of sugar to help the rape go down. Nonetheless, put them together, and these two awful crimes apparently cancel each other out. You can pretty much imagine a jolly uncle saying something like, "Where are you boys off to tonight? Out raping and pillaging, I'll be bound." But you wouldn't want one of them to reply, well, not pillaging anyway.
No, I think some of this just has to do with the fact that there's been like probably a lot of caricatures or stories or whatever written, and it feels like once that happens, it kind of becomes a thing that's romanticized. Well, and he also brings us up, like, a lot of the people involved in any of this stuff are now dead and gone and buried for, like, a long time. So our connection to those individuals or what actually happened is kind of severed to the point of, you know, near non-existent. So it's just kind of, yeah, I don't know.
I suspect the answer is that it happened a long time ago, so it's funny. Just as all historical events, however bloody and violent, eventually become funny.
Yeah, Genghis Khan. People make jokes about that all the time. That dude killed, like, so many people. I mean, I guess he wasn't incredibly caring with regards to the virtue of women either. So, you know. But still, we make jokes about that crap all the time.
Even the most radioactive material has a half-life. The raping Vikings are funny because we're not picturing rapists, we're picturing Vikings. Cartoon Vikings with ginger beards and horns on their helmets, which they didn't have, by the way. And we're not picturing real victims either. We're picturing buxom carry-on milkmaids who are bored with Anglo-Saxon kings burning their cakes all the time and are quite looking forward to some Norse nookie. And maybe in 500 years' time, we'll imagine the Red Army arriving in East Berlin in exactly the same way.
I don't know.
Or
maybe.
Or sooner. According to secret guidelines from the government, I can reveal that the First World War is due to go hilarious in 2040, with World War II to follow in 2090. Obviously, we've already reached the point where you can set a sketch or even a sitcom in either war, but...
I'm just looking at these birds because there's like patterns in its background quite often, so I'm just like paranoidly looking at them.
They're not properly...
No, like Hogan's Heroes was set in World War II, so I feel like World War II is kind of already gone that way. Hogan's Heroes was probably, I guess, in the 60s or thereabouts.
Uncomplicatedly funny yet. But at the point when everyone who fought in them, and everyone who remembers anyone who fought in them has died, they will surely become as comic as the Vikings or the Spanish Inquisition. You may think I'm making light of the more recent victims, but I'm not. We're all making light of the less recent ones. People from history had souls and feelings just like us. When Edward II supposedly had a red-hot poker put up his bum, hilarious though it sounds now.
I heard about that. I think they thought he was gay or something, or he was purported to be gay or something, so they thought it was really funny. So, it's not yeah.
It was
That's
a
the
real
thing.
poker and
That happened.
a real bum. And the raping and pillaging Vikings were essentially a terrorist insurgency.
It's true.
They had to come by sea, which makes them more fun. They wore fancy dress, inasmuch as they were dressed as Vikings. And crucially, they did it all 1,000 years ago. So what history tells us
And they were.
is that if you want
I wasn't sure if the Vikings were religious fanatics, but I don't think that's what would have necessarily inspired them. They just wanted stuff, I think. They actually, I think they had, I don't know if they had a hold of the north part of England for a while. I thought they actually did create kind of an actual invasion of, well, not an invasion, but at some point they held some ground in England itself. Not for sure though.
to get away with an atrocity, try to commit it a millennium ago, and if at all possible, spread a rumor that you were wearing a funny hat.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, there are actually people who probably do something like that, where they try to put distance between themselves and the things they've done by just saying, "Oh, it was way back when I was young and stupid. I was a stupid young person." By the way, this is male grooming, not in the way it's used today. It's literally just.
You may have noticed that these podcasts are generously sponsored, well, self-interestedly sponsored, well, at any rate, sponsored by a brand of men's grooming products, who have decided, for reasons best known to themselves, that their range would profit by being associated with a series of 3-minute rants from a man for whom grooming is self-evidently not a burning issue.
Well, I guess never thought of him as being disheveled, but I wouldn't have thought of him as being kind of a dandy prat either. Just kind of a, nondescript sort of fellow.
Well, I want to talk about men's grooming this week, so let me start by saying, on behalf of my sponsor, that I've never bought any of their products, but I was given a few for free.
And just in general, I feel like the notion of grooming is it can be taken very far, but there's nothing wrong with wanting to look good in my mind, or wanting to look presentable.
And they represented the best value for money of any shampoo I've ever used. There.
I think generally that just has to do with marginal cleanliness or maybe not as disheveled as one might look in general. Just trying to make yourself look a little bit presentable. But again, I feel like it can be very much taken over the realm of it can be taken over the line of functionality and into the realm of just, oh, you're spending way too much time on this.
The executives of Bulldog may now withdraw to debate amongst themselves whether or not I am worth it. Good. Now then, men's grooming. What? Where has it come from?
That is right, if I remember correctly, right over top of. Give me a second. Alright, there we go.
This idea that men should groom themselves. Surely it used to be the case that for a man to appear to care what he looked like was at least effeminate, if not actually vain.
I still think that is kind of the case, a little bit. At least in most circles, I imagine. There would probably be exceptions involving Hollywood, but man, they cut the crap out of their faces and do all sorts of random stuff, so. I don't know if they're the ones to be trusted on this point.
It was shaming to smell of body odour, certainly, but no less shaming to smell of an aftershave that you'd chosen to smell pretty, like a girl. There's an advert out at the...
I feel like women maybe would have been the progenitors of some of this in that they wanted men to smell less bad or something like that. So it's all their fault, just like the garden.
Moment, for instance, for a deodorant that comes in a little pocket-sized can. The idea being that when on your mask...
Okay, is this some sort of British thing? I have no idea, is this just the symbol of male barbarianism or something?
...in rounds, you meet a woman insufficiently impressed by your no doubt magnetic personality and devastating good looks. You can give yourself a quick squirt, and the poor girl won't be able to help herself. Now, is this...
Yeah, like Axe body spray.
...image not just a tiny bit rehypnol-y? Not a...
I had to look that one up. I think it has to do with the drug Rohypnol, which is technically, I believe, a date rape drug, but it has. I think the notion is that it's putting you to sleep, or just kind of knocking you out a little bit or something like that.
Not only that, but the product is called
Nice adjective, though.
the Lynx Bullet. Bullet. Really? For shooting women with? From your gun? Though, to be fair, that's only the same pitch perfume advertising has been using for decades. Ladies, this perfume is so effective it's dangerous. One whiff of this
Forgot that was in there.
with a couple of dainty little squirts when they see a lady. And of course, with a couple of dainty little squirts of perfume for men to carry round with them to top themselves up. Bullet. It's a little vial of perfume for men to carry round with them to top themselves up with a couple of dainty little...
I don't think I've ever carried it around with me. Maybe if you're going on like a trip to somewhere, you would take deodorant, but
squirts when they see a lady. And of course, the more feminine
maybe that's different in Britain.
a product is, the more masculine and butch the companies have to make it seem. Bullet. Mach 3. Bulldog.
That's actually probably true.
But however much you market these things as if they were spaceships or warp drives, they are actually pampering products. Razors, for instance, are all advertised by how science-defyingly smooth they can make your face. But smooth isn't manly, it's girly. They're competing about which of them can make your face girliest.
It's coming from a person who's clean shaven, just pointing that out. A little bit hypocritical there.
Buy the Gillette Tomahawk for the closest shave so your face can be more like a girl's face. No, don't buy that. Instead, girlify your face with Wilkinson Sword's new man's girl.
It's strange how that whole thing, because I feel like beards have kind of come back in these days, at least in America. I don't know what's going on in England, but the way things change, the way... Like, I tend to think that gender roles aren't... They're not, like, absolute. You can have a lot of stuff shifting around, but they tend to be intuitive, at least on a very basic level. But within that, there's a lot of, like, variability that can and does happen with regards to what is manly or what isn't. And it maybe has to do with media or stories or just really popular characters in society that start trends or something like that. I'm not for sure, though. I think that would be some of it.
Curling rod. I look forward to the inevitable day when they start selling other providers of softness and comfort this way. Armchairs, for instance. Introducing the new Cozytron 5000. Finally, your ass will conquer the armies of discomfort with the softest armchair invented by science.
It'd be funny, like, just an idea, but if they sometime got, like, this type of thing read in one of those, like, I don't know, WWE announcer voice type things. Or the type of, like, voice they sometimes have on trailers. Just have them read off the most inane, weird phrases.
The first cushion makes you comfy. The second cushion makes you comfier. But the revolutionary new third cushion transports you to a snugness you never dreamt possible. The Cozytron 5000. Breaking the frontiers of snugglydom.
Here we go. Last one in the box.
All right. Fair warning, this one is going to be a bit blue. There's no swearing in it, but it's off colour, near the knuckle and close to the bone. The knuckle bone, presumably. So if you're watching this because you enjoyed the one about the importance of good spelling, for instance, or the one decrying the decline in common courtesy, this might be a good time to stop watching. About now-ish. All right? Still here? Right then. Necrophilia. Told you so. A stand-up comedian
Shocking.
told me the other day that when he really wants to shock, necrophilia is his go-to taboo.
Well, I guess I see the taboo. I guess I'd never really thought of it as being a taboo maybe before watching this. Like, I don't know if I would ever even have heard the word. Maybe once on, like, Big Bang Theory or something like that, but it's not really something that comes up that often. I think it's probably, well, there's kind of not unlike pedophilia, there's kind of a window of opportunity there, which very quickly goes away. But in principle, I think it has the notions about necrophilia would have. I don't know exactly where it would become a thing, like as a taboo. That is. Maybe I don't have the initial reaction that most people would have. I don't think it's a good idea. Not for sure.
Audiences for whom gags about paedophilia, incest and rape are old hat, who are finding all his Joseph Fritzl and Baby P material a bit stale, really perk up when he mentions the love that dare not, and for 50% of its practitioners cannot, speak its name. This seems very odd. No one's suggesting that a taste for humping corpses is something that looks good in a Lonely Hearts ad. Then again, it hardly needs to. But isn't it essentially harmless? So
that's kind of the thing. It does seem like on the face of it to be essentially harmless, but the reason why, again, I don't know if I have the same visceral reaction that people have, and maybe that's my own flaw, some sort of selective blindness with regards to, I don't know, selective, some sort of thing that I'm not seeing, emotional truth that I'm incapable of perceiving. But I think one of the issues is that, the notion would be that all action involves interaction, so you can't act like you're doing one thing and getting one result. You're doing probably multiple things and getting a whole range of results out of that. So the notion of legalizing, cannibalism or something like that, the body's dead. Why does it matter if people eat it? Well, in part, I think it's because of the people giving a good send-off to the corpse of their dearly departed. It helps them maybe reconcile with stuff. It helps them let go. I think that's part of it. So it's in part for the people who are still alive, who remember this person and who want to see them have a nice, peaceful burial. But apart from that, the fact that you're legalizing cannibalism is also going to involve maybe the creation of an industry around that, or people getting to the point where they're like, hey, I like eating people. Maybe I could take matters into my own hands with regards to the supply of meat I want. It's not like you just, again, you don't do one thing and get one result. There's a whole range of results.
certainly compared to those other taboos, it seems like a victimless crime. Surely it makes no sense that people weirdly wanting to have sex with what are essentially inanimate objects should be deemed more horrific than their wanting to do it with other humans or indeed animals.
Again, it's not just that. I feel like that's the case. It's not just I want to have sex with an inanimate object. There's probably STDs that would also get involved. It's a lot of different stuff. It feels like the notion that it wouldn't bleed over into other parts of society would probably not be the case. I feel it could be impossible for it not to have effects on other stuff.
Animals that aren't up for it. Is it just that people find necrophilia the most incomprehensible of sexual perversions?
That's part of it too.
Deep down, maybe more of us than care to admit it can actually imagine the temptation of a sexy sheep to a lonely goat herd, tired of goats, a long way from human company. But the fact that it's easier to
I think there are stereotypes with regards to some of the classes in England. Not classes. I don't know. There's just stories about some of them and their animal husbandry.
understand doesn't mean it's not worse to terrorize a sheep than violate a useless object. Once you're dead, the question of whether anyone has their wicked way with you seems like the least of your problems. Because really, you've only got one problem.
That's kind of the point. I don't think it's because of the person who's dead. I don't think I would care that much at that point, obviously. But I think it's for the people who are still alive. That it's a good idea if they can, have a nice resolution to that person's life. It allows us to let go.
And it's a biggie. What I'm saying then is let's get ourselves organised and end this taboo. Of course, no one should be allowed to get jiggy with a body the former inhabitant of which wouldn't have liked the idea, but there must be plenty of people like me whose attitude, once all the useful organs have been harvested, would be, well, I'm not using it, help yourself. So all it would take is an extra box to tick on the organ donor card. Once we've taken out your kidneys, liver and lungs and stuffed the resulting space with sawdust, do you or do you not have any objection to a couple of perverts having a go on you while you're fresh?
I might cut this one out. It's a little bit goofy. Anyways, we're gonna move on to the history section. There's a video by Dr. K about ego or something I was thinking of watching, but all right, give me a second to grab some water. All right. The Night of the Long Knives. German. Nach der langen Messer. I think Messer is just German for knife, probably. Yeah, Nach der langen Knives. All right. Also called Rom Purge, or Operation Hummingbird, was a purge that took place in Nazi Germany from the 30th of June to the 2nd of July, 1934. Chancellor Hitler, urged by Hermann Goering and Heinrich Himmler, ordered a series of extrajudicial executions intended to consolidate his power and alleviate the German military concerns about the role of Ernst Röhm, was a German military officer and politician, leading member of the Nazi Party, a close friend of an early ally of Hitler. Röhm was the co-founder and leader of the Nazi Party's original parliamentary wing. So, I'm assuming Hitler would have abolished this? I don't know. Alright, to alleviate German military concerns about the role of Ernst Röhm and an organization known colloquially as the Brown Shirts. Nazi propaganda presented the murders as a preventative measure against alleged imminent coup by the SA under Röhm, the so-called Röhm. You wonder if things would have turned out differently if they had actually had a parliament. Whatever it is. The primary instruments of Hitler's actions were Schutzstaffel, paramilitary force under Himmler and his security services, SD, and the Gestapo, secret police under Reinhard Heydrich. I think that's how it's said. Between them carried out most of the killings. Göring's personal police battalion also took part. Many of those killed in the purge were leaders of the SA, the best known being Röhm himself, the SA's chief of staff, and one of Hitler's longtime supporters and allies. Leading the members of the Nazi parties, included its leader Gregor Strasser, were also killed, as were established conservatives and anti-Nazis such as the former chancellors. Yeah, go conservatives. I have no idea what this means in Nazi Germany at that point, but it doesn't say anti-Nazis. It says conservatives and anti-Nazis, so I don't know what's going on there. Such as Chancellor Kurt von Schleichow, and Bavarian politician Gustav Ritter von Kahr, who would help suppress Hitler's beer hall putsch in 1923. I know for a while Hitler was kind of persona non grata or something in Germany. They didn't really like him for a while, but I think that repression or whatever kind of led a little bit to his uprising a little bit as well. The murders of SA leaders were also intended to improve the image of the Hitler government, with a German public increasingly critical of thuggish SA tactics. Hitler saw the SA's independence and his members' penchant for street violence, so they weren't good people either. As a direct threat to his newly gained political power, he also wanted to appease the leaders of Reichswehr, the German military, who feared and despised the SA as a potential rival. In particular because Röhm's ambition to merge the army and the SA under his leadership. So he was doing a power grab too. Feared and despised the SA as a potential rival, in particular because Röhm merged the army and the SA under his leadership. Additionally, Hitler was uncomfortable with Romm's outspoken support for a second revolution to redistribute wealth. Oh, he was a commie. In Romm's view, the President von Hindenburg's appointment of Hitler as Chancellor on the 30th of January 1933 had brought the Nazi Party to power, but had left the party's larger goals unfulfilled. Finally, Hitler used the purge to attack or eliminate German critics of his new regime, especially those loyal to Vice Chancellor Franz von Papen, and to settle scores with enemies. At least 85 people died during the purge, although the final death toll might have been higher, with some estimates running from 700 to 1,000. More than 1,000 perceived opponents were arrested. The purge strengthened and consolidated the military support for Hitler. It also provided a legal grounding for the Nazis, as the German courts and cabinet quickly swept aside centuries of legal prohibitions against extrajudicial killings to demonstrate their loyalty to the regime. The Night of the Long Knives marked Hitler's absolute consolidation of judicial power and is a turning point in the establishment of Nazi Germany. Hitler went on to call himself the administrator of justice of the German people. That sounds kind of unfortunate, tyrannical almost, evocative in a really bad way. In his speech to the Reichstag on the 13th of July, 1934, yeah. Conflict between the army. I don't know if I want to go into the more. Is there anything else in here I want to check out? Heydrich and Himmler. This is a really big article too. The Purge. All right, here we go. Here's the Purge. Yeah, I might just. No, let's go into some of this at least. At about 4:30 on June 30th, 1934, Hitler and his entourage flew to Munich. From the airport, they drove to the Bavarian Interior Ministry, where they assembled the leaders of the SA rampage that had taken place in the city streets the night before. Enraged, Hitler tore the epaulets off the shirts of SA Obergruppenführer August Schneiderhuber, chief of the Munich police, for failing to keep order in the city the previous night. Hitler shouted at Schneiderhuber and accused him of treachery. Was executed later that day as stormtroopers were hustled off to prison. Hitler assembled a large group of SS and regular police and departed for Hausenbauer Hotel in Bad Weisse, where Ernst Röhm and his followers were staying. With Hitler's arrival in Bad Weisse between 6 and SA leadership still in bed were taken by surprise. SS men stormed the hotel, and Hitler personally placed Röhm and other high-ranking SA leaders under arrest. The SS found Breslau SA leader Edmund Heinz in bed with an unidentified 18-year-old. Okay. That's a thing. Hitler ordered both Heinz and his partner to be taken outside the hotel and shot. Goebbels emphasized this aspect in subsequent propaganda, justifying the purge as a crackdown on moral turpitude. I don't know what turpitude means. Anyway. Meanwhile, the SS and other SA leaders, as they left their train for the planned meeting with Röhm and Hitler, the SS arrested the other SA leaders as they left their train for planned meeting with Röhm and Hitler. Although Hitler presented no evidence of the plot by Röhm to overthrow the regime, he nevertheless denounced leadership of the SA. Arriving back at the party headquarters in Munich, Hitler addressed the first assembled crowd. Consumed with rage, Hitler denounced the worst treachery in world history. He told the crowd that undisciplined and disobedient characters and asocial or diseased elements would be annihilated. The crowd, which involved the party members and many SA members, fortunate enough to escape the arrest, shouted its approval. Hess, present amongst the assembled, even volunteered to shoot the traitors. Joseph Goebbels, who had been with Hitler at Bad Weisse, set the final phase of the plan in motion. Upon returning to Berlin, Goebbels telephoned Göring at 10 o'clock, code word Kolibri, to let loose the execution squads on the rest of their unsuspecting victims. Sepp Dietrich received orders from Hitler for the Leibstandarte to form an execution squad and go to Stadelheim prison, where certain SA leaders were being held. There in the prison courtyard, started firing the Leibstandarte firing squad shot 5 SA generals and an SA colonel. Those not immediately executed were taken back to the Leibstandarte barracks at Lichterfeld and given 1-minute trials and shot by firing squads. How delightful. Oh, for the love. Trials. Emphasis. Trials. I'm doing air quotes if you can see that. The regime did not limit itself to a purge of the SA, having earlier imprisoned or exiled prominent social democrats and communists. Hitler used the occasion to move against conservatives he considered unreliable. This included Vice-Chancellor Papen, those who in his immediate circle. In Berlin, on Göring's personal orders, an armed SS unit stormed the Vice-Chancellery. Gestapo officers attached to the SS unit shot Papen's secretary, Herbert von Bosse, without bothering to arrest him first. The Gestapo arrested and later executed Papen's close associate, Edgar Hung, the author of Papen's Marburg speech, and disposed of his body by dumping it in a ditch. The Gestapo also murdered Erich Klausener, the leader of the Catholic Action and close Papen associate. Leader of Catholic Action. Movement of lay Catholic organized to promote the church, the guidance of the hierarchy. Okay. Anti-clericalism in Europe. Interesting. Papen was unceremoniously arrested at the Vice-Chancellery despite his insistent protests that he could not be arrested in his position as Vice-Chancellor. Although Hitler ordered him released 2 days later, Papen no longer dared criticize the regime and was sent off to Vienna as German ambassador. Hitler and Himmler unleashed the Gestapo against old enemies as well. Both Kurt von Schleicher, Hitler's predecessor as Chancellor, and his wife were murdered at their homes. Others killed included Gregor Strasser, former Nazi who had angered Hitler by resigning from the party in 1932, and Gustav Ritter von Kahr, the former Bavarian state commissioner who had helped crush the beer hall putsch of 1923. The murdered included at least one accidental victim, William Schmid, a music critic of the Münchner newspaper, whose name was confused with one of the Gestapo's intended targets. As Himmler adjutant Karl Wolff later explained, friendship and personal loyalty were not allowed to stand in the way. Amongst others, a charming fellow named Karl von Splede, Röhm's personal adjutant. He held the same position with Röhm as I held with Himmler. He died with words, "High lips, we were close, personal friends, but we often dined together in Berlin." He lifted up his arm in a Nazi salute and called out, "I love Germany." Okay. Some SA members died sane because they believed that an anti-Hitler SS plot had led to their execution. Several leaders of the disbanded Catholic Center Party were also murdered in the purge. The party had generally been aligned with the Social Democrats and Catholic Church during the rise of Nazism, being critical of Nazi ideology, but voting nonetheless for the Enabling Act of 1933, which granted Hitler dictatorial authority. Kurt Luchtig, a party associated of Röhm, was imprisoned but escaped after 8 months in a concentration camp. He later wrote "I Knew Hitler," the story of the Nazi who escaped the blood purge, published in 1937 by Rom's fate. Rom was held briefly at Stadelheim prison in Munich, where Hitler considered his future. On the 4th of July, at Hitler's behest, Theodor, commandant of the Dachau concentration camp, and his SS adjutant, Michael Lippert, visited Rom. Once inside Rom's cell, they handed him a Browning pistol loaded with a single cartridge and told him that he had 10 minutes to kill himself or they would do it for him. Robert demurred. Don't know what that means. Raised doubts or objections to show reluctance. There's the word demur, which I remember, which is kind of a... Maybe it is kind of in the same realm. See, like I was thinking of in terms of reference to like an adjective often applied to women. She was very demure. Telling them, if I am to be killed, let Adolf do it himself. Having heard nothing in the allotted time, they returned to Rommel's cell at 4:50 to find him standing with his bare chest puffed out in a gesture of defiance. Erich and Lippert then shot Rommel, killing him. In 1957, the German authorities tried Lippert in Munich for Rom's murder. Until then, Lippert had been one of the few executioners of the Purge to evade trial. Lippert was convicted and sentenced to 18 months in prison. Alright, the aftermath. Given that the Purge claimed the lives of so many prominent Germans, it could hardly be kept secret. At first, the architects seemed to split on how to handle the event. Göring instructed the police to station to burn all documents concerning the action of the past 2 days. Meanwhile, Goebbels tried to prevent the newspapers from publishing lists of the dead, but at the same time used a July 2nd radio address to describe how Hitler narrowly prevented Rom from overthrowing the government and throwing the country into turmoil. Then, on the 13th of July, 1934, Hitler justified the purge in a national broadcast speech to the Reichstag. If anyone reproaches me and asks why I did not resort to regular courts of justice, then all I can say is this. In this hour, I was responsible for the fate of the German people, and thereby I became the supreme judge of the German people. Oh, how delightful. That's never gone wrong, right? I gave the order to shoot the ringleaders in this treason, and I further gave the order to cauterize, not one I really use, down to the raw flesh the ulcers of this poisoning the wells of, to cauterize down to the raw flesh the ulcers of this poisoning of the wells in our domestic life. Let the nation know that its existence, which depends on its internal order and security, cannot be threatened with impunity by anyone. Let it be known for all of time to come that if anyone raises his hand to strike the state, then certain death is his lot. Wanting to present the massacre as legally sanctioned, Hitler had a cabinet approve the measures on the 3rd of July and declared the measures taken on the 30th of June, July 1st, and 2nd to suppress the treasonous assaults are legal as acts of self-defense by the state. Reich Justice Minister Franz Gärtner, a conservative who had been Bavarian Justice Minister in the years of the Weimar Republic, demonstrated his loyalty to the new regime by drafting the statute which added to the legal veneer of the purge, signed into law by Hitler, Gärtner, and the Minister of the Interior Wilhelm Frick. The law regarding measures of state defense retroactively legalized the murders committed during the purge. Germany's legal establishment further capitulated to the regime when the country's leading legal scholar Carl Schmitt wrote the article defending Hitler's 13th July speech. It was named Der Führer schützt das Reich. Upholds the law. The Führer upholds the law. Alright. A special fund administered by the SS General Breithaupt was set up for the relatives of the murdered, from which they were cared for at the expense of the state. Well, that's, I guess, nice. The widows of the murdered SS officers received between 1,000 and 1,600 marks per month, a month, depending on the rank of the murdered person. Kurt von Steider's stepdaughter received 250 marks per month up to the age of 21. The son of General von Bredow received a monthly allowance of 150 marks. The army almost unanimously applauded the Night of the Long Knives, even though the generals Kurt von Steyde and Ferdinand von Bredow were among the victims. A telegram reportedly from the alien Hindenburg Germans highly revealed military hero expressed his profoundly felt gratitude and congratulated Hitler for nipping the treason in the bud. Although Hermann Goering later admitted during the Nuremberg trials that the telegram was never seen by Hindenburg and actually was written by Nazis. Okay. Nice. Alien Hindenburg. So I'm assuming he would have been like a World War I hero? Alright. It was actually written by Nazis. General von Reichenau went so far as to publicly give credence to the lie that Schleicher had been plotting to overthrow the government. Schleicher, I don't know. Had been plotting to overthrow the government in his speech to the Reichstag on 13th of July, justifying his action. In his speech to the Reichstag on the 13th of July, justifying his action, Hitler denounced Schleicher for conspiring with Röhm to overthrow the government. Hitler alleged that both were traitors working in the pay of France. Oh, can't forgive consorting with French people. Oh, croissant. Sorry. I was copying that from, I think that's from one of the Freakazoid videos. He has fun with those guys. With the French guys, that is. Alright, since Schleicher was good friends. Actually, I have to write something down. Alright, where was I? In France, since Schleicher was a good friend of the French ambassador André. Oh, so he was friends with a Frenchman. That's guilty in my book. And because of his reputation for intrigue, the claim that Schleicher was working for France had enough surface plausibility for most Germans to accept it. Nevertheless, Francois Poncet was not declared persona non grata, as it would have been usual. I don't actually know what this means. Alright, persona non grata. In diplomacy, persona non grata is a foreign diplomat that is asked by the host country to be recalled to their home country. If the person is not recalled, as requested, the state may refuse to recognize the person as a member. Other usage. In a non-diplomatic use, referring to someone as persona non grata is to say that that person is not popular or accepted by others. Because I said that Hitler at one point was persona non grata. It's not the political usage. It's just, I think they were kind of outlawing a lot of his stuff. The Nazi Party was being suppressed, I guess, by the legacy media, as one might say. There was stuff going on. The army's support for the purge, however, would have far-reaching consequences for the institution. The humbling of the SA ended the threat it had posed to the army, but by standing by Hitler during the purge, the army bound itself more tightly to the Nazi regime. One retired captain, Erwin Plack, seemed to realize this. If you look on without lifting a finger, he said to his friend, General Werner von Fritsch, you will meet the same fate sooner or later. There's a saying from, I think, Isaac Asimov's, the friend of a conqueror is but the last to be conquered. Or my paraphrase of that is, enemy of my enemy is my last victim. Yeah, that's my version. Another rare exception was Field Marshal August von Maxde, who spoke about the murders of Schleicher and Bredow at the annual General Staff Society meeting after they had been rehabilitated by Hitler. At the annual General Staff Society meeting in February 1935, after they had been rehabilitated by Hitler in early January. The staff meetings or the generals? Rumors about the Night of the Long Knives rapidly spread, although many Germans approached the official news of the event described by Joseph Goebbels with a great deal of skepticism. Many others took the regime at its word and believed that Hitler had saved Germany from the descent into chaos. Luke Solmitz, a Hamburg schoolteacher, echoed the sentiments of many Germans when she cited Hitler's personal courage, decisiveness, and effectiveness in her private diary. She even compared him to Friedrich the Great, the 18th century king of Prussia. Others, appalled at the scale of the executions and relative complacency of many of their fellow Germans, a very calm and easygoing mailman, the diarist Victor Kemperer, wrote, who is not at all a National Socialist, said, well, he has simply sentenced them. It did not escape Kempler's notice that many of the victims had played a role in bringing Hitler to power. A chancellor, he wrote, sentences and shoots members of his own private army. The extent of the massacre and the relative ubiquity of the Gestapo, however, meant that those who disappeared from the purge generally kept quiet about it. Those who disapproved of the purge generally kept quiet about it, with a few exceptions of General Kurt von Hammer and Field Marshal August von, who started a campaign to have Schleicher rehabilitated by Hitler. Hammerstein, who was a close friend of Schleicher, had been much offended at Schleicher's funeral when the SS refused to allow him to attend the service and confiscated the wreaths that the mourners had brought. Besides working for the rehabilitation of Schleicher and Bredow, Hammerstein and Mackensen sent a memo to Hindenburg on 18th of July setting out in considerable detail the circumstances of the murders of the two generals and noted that Papen had barely escaped. The memo went on to demand that Hindenburg punish those responsible and criticize outspoken support of the murderers of Schleicher and Bredow. Finally, asked that Hindenburg reorganize the government by firing Baron Constantine Nuremberg. Man, there's a lot of Robert Ley, Hermann Goering, Werner von Blumberg, Joseph Goebbels, and Richard Walther Darré from the cabinet. The memo asked that Hindenburg instead create a directorate to rule Germany, comprised the Chancellor, who was not named, General Werner von Fritsch as Vice Chancellor, and Hammerstein as Minister of Defense, the Minister for National Economy also named, and Rudolf. The request that Neurath be replaced by Nadolny, a former ambassador to the USSR who had resigned earlier that year in protest against Hitler's anti-Soviet foreign policy, indicated that Hammerstein and Mackensen wanted to return to the distant friendliness towards the Soviet Union that had existed until 1933. Mackensen and Hammerstein ended their memo with, "Excellency, the gravity of the moment has compelled us to appeal to you as our supreme commander. The destiny of our country is at stake. Your Excellency has thrice before saved Germany from foundering at Tannenberg at the end of the war, and at the moment of your election as the Reichspräsident. Excellency, save Germany for the fourth time. The undersigned generals and senior officers swear to preserve to the last breath their loyalty to you and the fatherland." Hindenburg never responded to the memo. It remained unclear whether he ever saw it, as Otto Meyer decided that his future was aligned with the Nazis, may have not passed it along. It is noteworthy that even those officers who were the most offended by the killings, like Hammerstein and Mackensen, did not blame the purge on Hitler, whom they wanted to see continue as Chancellor. They at most wanted a reorganization of the cabinet to remove some of Hitler's more radical followers. In late 34, early 1935, that is, Werner von Fritsch, who had been shamed into joining Hammerstein in Hammerstein's rehabilitation campaign, successfully pressured Hitler into rehabilitating General von Schleicher and von Bredow. Fritz and Blumberg suddenly now claimed at the end of 1934 that as army officers they could not stand with exceedingly violent press attacks on Schleicher and Bredow that had been going on since July, which portrayed them as the vilest traitors working against the fatherland and invaded France. Blah, blah, blah. Speech in a speech given on the 3rd of January 1935 at Berlin State Opera, Hitler stated that Schleicher and Beddoes had been shot in error on basis of false information and that their names were to be restored to the honor rolls of their regiments at once. Hitler's speech was not reported in the German press, but the army was appeased by the speech. However, despite the rehabilitation of the 2 murdered officers, the Nazis continued in private to accuse Schleicher of high treason. During a trip to Warsaw, Göring told Jan Senate that Schleicher had urged Hitler in January of 1933 to reach an understanding with France and the Soviet Union, and partition Poland with the latter. Hitler had Schleicher killed out of disgust with the alleged advice. During a meeting with the Polish ambassador Joseph Lipski on the 22nd of May 1935, he was rightfully murdered, if only because he had sought to maintain the Rapallo Treaty. I'm assuming that was something with Russia, right? The stalemate that Schleicher had been killed. The statements that Schleicher had been killed because he wanted to partition Poland with the Soviet Union were later published in Polish White Book of 1939, which is a collection of diplomatic documents detailing German-Polish relationships up to the outbreak of the war. Former Kaiser Wilhelm, who was in exile in Doom. What's Doom? A town. Dorn, sorry. I think. Alright. Dorn, Netherlands, was horrified by the purge. He asked, what would people have said if I had done such a thing? Hearing of the murder of former Chancellor Kurt von Schleicher and his wife, he also commented, we have ceased to live under the rule of law, and everyone must be prepared for the possibility that the Nazis will push their way in and put them up against the wall. All right. Nice. Not nice. Interesting, though. Yeah, we're good. We're good. I'm thinking this is the one.
Rumours creep in from the south of a giant who leads the forces of Scotland. His great sword driving through earth, man and horse alike. If this mythical knight can stall the English advance, it will give us time to develop the arms we need. Even now our smiths are forging swords and fletchers are crafting arrows and crossbow bolts. The English use very advanced weapons and armour. To win, you will need to advance to the feudal age and repel the English raids. You're going to need to research some technologies of your own to increase the strength of your civilization. For example, researching loom makes your villagers harder to kill.
No, I've done this one. I know I've done this one. Okay. Alright, here we go.
The time for minor skirmishes is over. We now prepare for war. The villain Longshanks is poised to cross the River Forth and threaten the town of Stirling with a force of men-at-arms, heavy cavalry, and a multitude of archers. Our newly forged army marches southward to establish our own base and attack the English before they can ready their troops. The time has come to take the offensive. The English have a fort near the town of Stirling. If we can defeat the English here, they may think twice about their invasion of Scotland. To win, destroy the English tower to the west. Before we attack the English to the west, we need to build up our forces. Have your villagers start gathering food and wood.
Oh, there we go.
Keep making villages at your town centre until you have 10. The more villagers you have, the faster your resources will come in.
And function. And
Kid?
we're going to need a house.
Rabugya.
The hill with the dead tree protects the only access to your town. It
Rabugya.
would be a good idea to build a watchtower on this hill once you advance to the feudal age.
Nice. Got some gold over here too.
You've found some sheep. Sheep are a good source of food, so send them back to your town centre and assign a villager to gather food from them. You can specify a location for new units to gather by setting a gather point. For villagers, click the town centre and click the Set Gather Point button. Use your villagers to build a mill near your forage bushes.
Forgere. Bunage.
Valgara. Rabugya.
Check. I think sometimes there. Sort of thing at all. Hints. Scouts. There's rock too.
You can gain more food by building fishing ships. To create fishing ships, have your villagers build a dock in the water
Sounds
to
like
the
fish
south.
and chips.
Erlov.
Actually, I
Rabugya.
Erlen.
There we go.
Rabugya.
Some people say man is made
Now
out of
click the
mud.
dock and build a fishing ship.
Poor man's made out of muscle and blood. Muscle and blood and skin and bone.
Rabugya.
Mind that's weak and the back that's strong. 16 guns. What do you get? Another day poor and deeper in debt. St. Peter calls me, tell him I can't go. I owe my soul to the company store. Ding, 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 ding. I was born one morning, the sun didn't shine.
You are close
My
to the
shovel
English base.
to the mine.
Better not knock down this wall until you have an army of
Oh, for
about
love.
12 soldiers. To fish, click a
What an
fishing ship
unfortunate
and
thing.
right-click on a leaping fish. The fishing ship will collect fish and automatically return them to the dock. Fishing ships are also useful for exploring. Scout cavalry are poor fighters, but they can see a great distance. You can use your scout cavalry to explore the rest of the map and find the English. Build a barracks
they
and
would
5
just-
militia to defend your villagers and
Just gonna
explore the
set an
map.
area or like a home point that they would like explore just in a certain area or something like that. Man, oh man, what is that? Annoying.
Villagers can also build farms.
They go all the way
Build
across
4
the map.
farms near your mill when your forage bushes are depleted.
Oh, nice.
Each farm needs
Yeah.
only 1 villager working on it.
Valgara.
Well, you know what's kind of annoying? Like, it's not annoying that they made the mechanic,
Rabuga.
but they made it so that they auto regenerate their fields, which is annoying because you have this thing right here, which is about like reseeding farms, but now they just auto reseed farms. It's kind of annoying. So, because they're kind of admitting, like, why did you have this in the first place if you're just going to create some sort of thing where, oh, we can just now fix all that. Alright, as far as this up, do that.
The English are coming to attack. To protect your villagers, you can use the town bell to garrison them in your town centre. Click your town centre, then click town bell.
Yeah. Destroy them all. Pansies.
Good. You defeated the English assault. If you have villagers in your town centre, ring the town bell again to send them back to work.
Don't tell me about business. Alright. Stay away from the English. Like a father telling his daughter, I won't have you near that degenerate.
Arlab. Theodica.
Kid? Fjedika?
Now that you have reached the feudal age, concentrate on making some soldiers to fight the enemy. You will need at least 12.
Kia?
You know, actually, I want some population here first.
Raboye. Raboye. Raboye.
Kia. Rabuga.
Erlov. Raboye. Folgere.
Julia.
Raboye. Raboye. Raboye.
Valgara. Nienaka.
Danica.
Kid. Rabuga.
Kid.
Oh.
Raboye. Folgere. Raboye. Kia. Rabwigya. Erlov. Rabwigya.
Don't forget, keep exploring the map. Good. Your watchtower will fire on enemy units and help protect your town.
Erlov.
Fortunately, I think when someone gets
Nienige.
close to it, you have to get murder holes as a research to get it so they can fire and stuff directly onto them. Otherwise, it just doesn't go. The thing is just check.
Kia. Rabwigya.
Kid,
The deuce.
bid fear, oh,
Valgara.
Remember, you can upgrade your militia to men-at-arms at the barracks. You should always upgrade soldiers when you can afford it.
Margaret. Bid fear,
Alright.
Kid. Rabwigya.
Idle. No, we have to-
Forgere.
Alright, there we go. Yep, blimey. Okay.
Boonage.
Just put people on wood again.
Kia. Rabwigya.
Ow. Well, that's
Oh.
unfortunate. I think that's only because I ran out of wood, though.
kid. Ho, ho,
Erlov. Rabwigya.
Kid.
46.
Rabwigya.
There we go.
Margaret. Bid fear,
Nice. Stew. Oh, I can't upgrade this.
Now you have a large enough force to attack the English base. Charge. Keep your villagers working just in case you suffer casualties and need to make more troops.
I feel like given this is in hard mode, I might need to do a little bit more.
Remember to upgrade weapons and armor at the blacksmith. You do have a blacksmith, don't you?
Shush. Of course I do. Your judgy tone.
Пробуйте.
Fargara.
Okay. That's
Rob Wigger. Rob Wigger.
Is it weird that the houses cost less than the field somehow, with regards to wood? This is not very intuitive, is it? This is like 25. The fields are 60.
Rob Wigger.
I don't know how or why that makes sense. But
Erlov.
apparently that's how we're doing things.
Dunkat. Tall. Bit fear.
I just want a lot of soldiers. Alright. Armor. That's attack, that's armor, alright. Alright.
Kid.
Ugh, caramba. Ow.
Margaret. Tall. 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 Bid fear. Erlov. Tall.
Alright.
Kid.
Let's go see if we can do
Bid
this.
fear. Tall.
Here.
Bonnet.
Actually, give me a second. I'm gonna take. Alright, we're back. We're back.
Erlov. Margaret. Kogo. Kogo.
You guys are getting this sound because somehow my headphone went goofy when I went outside for a second. Or disconnected or something. Weird.
Tall. Tall. Bit fear. Fall fail. Erlov. Dunkat. Kid. Tall.
Good job. You have eliminated the English soldiers. Now, destroy that tower and our victory will be complete.
Kid.
Great job. You have destroyed the English camp. The Battle of Stirling is sure to end in victory for the Scots.
Turn this off.
Now that you know how to build up, advance through the ages, and find and fight your enemies, you have all the basic skills you need to play a random map game. The most common type of game in Age of Empires 2.
Let's see here. Alright, there we're good. We're good.
Stirling was our first great victory. Even as we held the coastline, word arrived that Stirling Bridge had been held by a force of Scots led by the mythical knight of whom so many have spoken. Now we know his name. Sir William Wallace, the bane of the English. Edward Longshanks names Wallace a traitor and a criminal. Sir William replies he cannot be a traitor, for he never swore fealty to an English king. With Wallace leading our armies, the men fight
Check
with renewed
and
vigour.
mate.
Perhaps the tide of our misfortunes is about to turn.
Alright, one more level.
Our coffers were depleted at the Battle of Stirling. So we need to strengthen our economy once again before pushing south into lands held by the English. We need to construct a market and establish trade routes to the villages of friendly clans. Local legends speak of 3 sacred relics hidden south of Stirling. Acquiring these artifacts for Wallace's army will be a great boost to Scottish morale.
And relics get you gold in this one, I believe.
The Scottish army has been rallied by recent victories against the English. The situation is starting to look up. It will help the morale of our army to collect holy relics and place them in our monastery. One of the relics is close to your town. An ally has another relic, and the English have captured a third. You can retrieve a relic by clicking a monk and right-clicking the relic. Monks have other abilities as well. They can heal your injured soldiers, or those of your allies. They can also attempt to convert enemy soldiers to join your army.
I remember that. It's kind of a cool mechanic. I wish they would have kept it in some of the later games.
Kia,
Kiev?
Erlov, Bid Fear.
Like, it's kind of cool. Like, if you have a whole swath of monks, you could probably, well, you can in theory just take one and lead the enemy around while the others try to convert it or something like that.
Forget it. Oh. Kid, Kjart, Kjart.
Good.
Forget it.
You have a relic.
Fear.
Protect the relic in the monastery by right-clicking the monastery.
Tall, tall.
Perfect. You now have one relic garrisoned. Relics garrisoned in your monastery will slowly add gold to your stockpile.
Rob with you.
Alright, now. Site.
Farms are a good source of food once you have exhausted forage bushes and animals. Farms are built like buildings and must be periodically rebuilt. To gather food from a farm, click a villager, then right-click a farm.
Kia.
It's nice to have allies on the map. Your ally, the yellow player, can help you fight the enemy. You can also trade with your allies. To trade, you will need to build a market.
Where are the yellow guys? If you lose your initial monks, you can train more from the monastery when you reach castle age. Now, astounding. Scouts. And the Scots, blue, are mounting defense against the English. Scottish allies, yellow, have walled town to the west, holding a second relic. He'll provide support and fight with their fellow countrymen against the English. Alright, I've taken the third and final relic, okay. I guess they're probably somewhere over here-ish.
Erlov.
Yeah, cool.
Erlev. Rabwiga. 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 Rabwiga.
You have reached your ally's town. Go inside to see how his city is doing. Your ally's gate will open automatically for you.
Welcome! If you've come for the relic, you can find it on the hill to the northeast of our town.
Northeast. Assuming somewhere there. Do they even have? I assume they have. There we go.
Margaret. Bid fear.
Kid?
Did you know that there are 3 different modes for the minimap in the lower right corner of the screen?
Yes,
You
I
can
did,
show
actually.
only military units, or only resources, and trade units by clicking the buttons just below and to the right of the minimap.
Actually, I can upgrade. Nice. Where's the... Oh, here we go. Nice. Yeah. Heavy cavalry archer. Great skirmisher. Great crossbowman. Champion. Nice. Nice, nice, nice. Paladin. Those guys are good. I should get a dock going too.
Kia. Rabwiga.
Kia? Fiediga? Kid? Fiediga?
Kid. Rabwiga.
Erlab.
Villagers and soldiers normally appear outside of the building that created them. You can have your units move to a spot once they are created by using gather points. To set a gather point for infantry, click your barracks, click set gather point, then click where on the map you want your infantry to gather.
Forgere? Rabwiga.
Kid. Bid fear.
Kia. Rabwiga. Erlev. Kjart. Rabwiga. Nienige.
So, use some people.
You can use the technology tree to see what technologies and upgrades you can research.
Oh, I already knew that. Thank you.
Click the technology tree button in the upper right corner of the screen to see the tree for your civilization.
What should I do though?
Kid.
Let's,
Rabwiga. Rabwiga.
and an archer costs as much as a house. Perfect.
Erlov.
That's another 150. Plus 1 farm carrying capacity. Didn't know that was a thing. Presto. Research hand cards. Alright. Get some of these guys going.
Valgara.
Valgara. There was stone somewhere, right?
Toe. Brabwiga.
I should build a market here at some point as well. So the distance between the markets, that kind of governs how much gold you get, right? If I remember correctly. Per load is.
Forgere.
It's a good line. This right here, sorry, it seems alright.
Rabwige.
Also use as well. Would be a good. See, I don't know if this applies to people or the archers in towers. Militia line and fire lancers, 1 pierce arm.
You have a market. The market can create trade carts to generate extra gold. You can also exchange one resource for another at the market for a small fee. Click the market, then click sell food for gold.
The English are attacking our town. Can you tribute any spare food or gold to us?
To tribute your ally, click the diplomacy button in the upper right corner of the screen. Give your ally food and gold, but don't give him everything you own.
Thanks for the resources. If you have any spare soldiers, come to our town and let's drive the English out.
Out.
Pogo! Pogo!
You made a trade cart. If you click the trade cart on your ally's market, you can make extra gold. Your trade cart will automatically make trips between your and your allies' markets.
Margaret.
You have enough soldiers now to think about attacking the English and recovering their relic.
I already doubt it.
Kia. Toe. Kid. Fjedika.
Alright. Murder holes. Yeah, there we go.
If you're getting ready to attack the English, I can help you out. Here, take this food and wood.
Scottish food. What? Sheep's stomach? They're gonna give me? Give me some sheep stomach? Boo. Infantry, cavalry, and Hulk line. I'm assuming that's like the Marauders or whatever they... Like the Viking type stuff or something like that. Hulk line. I didn't know that was a thing actually. Maybe that's more of a recent advent. I should really put a couple of these people on. Gold.
Speed fear.
I don't have all the stuff yet, unfortunately.
Kid?
I guess I can't get paladins yet. Maybe it's just saying that that's what the civilization allows for. Clips move 10% faster. See, I could actually get some... Use that as a way to get in there. Fire galley. Build. Oh. Okay, is that what that means? Demolition raft. Armed with explosives that self-destruct when used. Strong versus units at close range. Fire galley. Trade cog. I don't know if I'm going to use it. Alright. Get some more. I like how we can get some sort of weird... There's a thumb ring upgrade, I think, for the archers. That makes them like 100% accurate. Some, I don't even know if it's like... It might be overpowered, but it just feels like it's really satisfying. It's really satisfying to watch.
Bid fear. Tall.
Alright, I got the relic.
Erlov.
Return it.
Toe.
Or cast it into the fire.
Kid? Tall.
Valgara. Punit.
Margaret. Tall.
Kia. Rabuga. Rabuga. Rabuga.
You now have 2 relics garrisoned. Bring back 1 more and you will be victorious.
Erlov. Tall. Bid fear.
Kid. Toe.
Margaret. Duncat.
Units 15% harder for enemy unit monks to convert. Must. guys over there and beat the crap out of whoever it is. Soldiers. Could probably do cavalry. Cavalry. I'm thinking these. Do these cost more population? I don't know. Stick a few knights in there as well. Just for good measure.
Forgere, ja. Bid
Ja.
fear.
Beat the fear.
Erlov.
Alright, now we're putting the knights here.
Kid, to.
Kia, Erlov, Jart.
Erlov. Bid fear. To paid. To. Bid fear. Kogo. Kogo.
Toe. Toe.
To. To paid. To. Done cut. Kogo. Kogo. Kid. Margaret. Oh, done cut. Bit fear. To. 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 Bid fear. Kogo.
There we go.
Kid,
That should be relatively quick up.
bid fear.
Who did I kill?
Kid. To.
I don't know if they actually have a base or if it's just that was it.
Bid fear. To. To.
There's no. Yeah, this is basically a tutorial. No, there is sellers. Okay, there's sellers. Look at that.
Toe.
Margaret.
Kia, bid fear. Jart.
Alright, I think that's at the end of it. Let's burn down their blacksmith too.
Erlov. To.
Oh,
To paid. Kid. Kogo. Kogo. Margaret. Done cut.
So there would have actually been 2 ways to get there.
Erlov. Kid.
Congratulations! You have captured all 3 relics.
Kid. Erlov. Forward.
Yeah, I did it.
With the 3 relics locked away safely in Scottish churches, men murmur that we are blessed by the heavens.
Blessed by the heavens.
Our army now stands a chance as we prepare for the final clash with the English. Scotland now has archers and knights of our own with which to meet Longshanks. We march south to Falkirk, where we will join with the army of William Wallace and plan our combined attack upon the English castle.
Alright. I think that's about it. You guys have a great weekend. Enjoy yourself. Do something fun. And goodbye.